stream is live.
We ready?
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, this time I'd like to call the meeting to order. This is a special call meeting of County Council. Today is Friday, September 24th. Before we get started, I'm going to ask Councilman Taylor if he would give us a quick invocation followed by a pledge of allegiance.
Oh, great almighty God, we just want to thank you for this time that Carlton County Council and Carlton County Administration and staff and community come together for this special call meeting. Lord, we pray that your favor would be on our life to make prudent decisions and receive information and knowledge that would be beneficial for the people in our community. And we'll give your name the praise forever. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilman Taylor. Call roll at this time. Vice Chairman Taylor.
Here.
Councilman Whitson.
Here.
Councilman Williams.
Here.
Councilman Flowers.
Yeah.
Madam Clerk, let the record reflect that we have a quorum present. We're here today for a special meeting to discuss some capital projects. I think we're going to start out, we're actually going to discuss before that, the Carlton County Veterans Council has a request that we are working on to create a Carlton County Veterans Park. So at this time, Mr. Griffin, I guess we'll turn it over and see who's going to lead the conversation on this.
Yes, sir. I think you have a list before you from, we got Mr. Johnny Holmes here, who's chairman of the Veterans Council, and actually today was just to get together to get a few ideas as to generally how we want to lay the park out, so we can, as y'all remember, the council budgeted about $75,000 to start the design of the park and get it moving. Also later in the meeting, we'll talk about that in relationship to all of our other capital projects and how we're moving forward to those. But with that, I can turn it over to Mr. Johnny if you want to kind of talk about what the council's vision is for the park, and then we've got some examples. Councilman Williams sent some pictures in, and I've got a few other things we could look over real quick to kind of get a general idea of what we want to do moving forward.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman and County Council. We thank you for the opportunity to come and stand before you and make this formal request for a veteran park. And I would, if you allow me to take just a few seconds to say a little bit about what the Veteran Council do. And as you know it, that we organize our Veteran Day Parade. We organize our Veterans Memorial Day service. And we do some other things that we don't advertise, and that is help veterans. Now, we just went into a veteran home here early part of the year and assisting in renovation and installing a walk-in shower. The veteran didn't, a World War II vet, right at 97 years old. He didn't have no proper running water, no heat, or things of that nature. We don't advertise it because we don't have the funds to do that kind of work. And we just went into another veteran home here. He didn't have any air conditioning, and he had a fan, and he was leaving the door. And we did some things there. And just a little bit about what we do. And in doing our Memorial Day service, I envision that when we, at some given time, we'll need a larger place, perhaps, to have our Memorial Day service, and perhaps something on Veterans Day. And I think this would be ideal to go, and that's why we have something like a shelter, that we can have service out there and invite all of our fellow veterans in the county. And those are some of the things that we venture out to do. And I could go a little bit further, some things we do on the DAV side, and I would imagine that there's some things that be done on the American Legion side as well. Because they have the boys, girls state, and on the DAV side, we also have a fish fry. We normally give a fish fry, we don't advertise, but we have a nice group of people, and in the neighborhood about 100 people for our fish fry, and that we were having at the Elks Lodge, and we were having a Christmas dinner at the National Guard Armory, in which we have a tremendous crowd. And we normally, on the DAV side, we normally give Thanksgiving basket to veterans and perhaps even elderly people in our communities. But those are just a few of the things that we do to let you know that we are serious about what we're trying to do. And I think beyond a doubt that the park would come and be an ideal place for us to have some of these things and bring veterans out. There's a lot of veterans in the county, but we don't see them maybe. But then when things of this nature is happening, and I think would be a plus for Colleton County. Yeah, I think it'd be a plus for Colleton County. And that's my spiel, and unless there's some questions.
Okay, well, let's talk about the actual request for the Veterans Park. I know, first of all, we have discussed the location, and that's in the vicinity, I don't know if that's...
Robertson
Is that what you have?
That's the parcel right there, 164 at 28.
All right, and that is, it's a little bit blurry to me, but is that the existing, is that the tennis court?
I believe that's the old tennis
That's the
court.
old tennis court there, that's the whole leg of the airport runway you see coming that way.
All right, so...
Can you see that better?
See, that's our landfill right up above it.
So that, the size of that parcel there is how big?
Like 2.7?
Oh my God.
2.2.
2.2.
So, I mean, I'll just kind of go down and give you my 2 cents on this. You know, the location obviously will take some change. If it's 2.2 acres, you know, I don't know if we need all of that footprint for the park. I guess that'll be determined when we finally do the design. I noticed in the request, it talks about ample parking. Of course, if we had to, I guess, build a parking lot and pave the parking lot, that would probably be, I would think, one of the most substantial costs, unless there's some existing parking there in the vicinity. Other than that, I know that you were talking about military vehicles. I don't know if there's some way to communicate with some of our higher-up elected officials to see if there's some decommissioned vehicles or something we could use, place at the park. Might be a way to do that. But the rest of this, I mean, does anybody have comments about these, about what's before us for the park? I mean, I think we're kind of all in agreement that we want to have a park. So I'm just going to open it up to council and make some comments about what they perceive in this.
I think that, Mr. Chairman, I think what they're requesting is realistic and basic, and I think that certainly a shed of some kind to have a function under would be appropriate and necessary if you have a park like this that is going to be utilized by the veterans. Because certainly even in the hot weather, you need a place to get under, and in the cold weather, and in the rain you do. So I think that would be certainly a basic thing that you would need, other than what they're requesting here. Certainly, I think that the request is reasonable and realistic, and I agree with you about the parking cost, unless we have something that has some parking there already. I wouldn't know about that. But I agree with you, and I think that we'll proceed. This is the basic request that we could make through the capital projects type of money.
Mr. Chairman, I think, talking about these old vehicles and stuff, not necessarily an old vehicle, but it's a place in Columbia where these things are kept. And I think Barry McRoy's got a contact with that, because they get some vehicles and stuff out there. You know, this vehicle might not necessarily have to run all the time since it's being stationed there, but I think that place of getting a vehicle or two is something that could happen and not cost much money too.
Okay, so any other comments about it? Or?
I don't have any issues with it. I think that it's necessary for the veterans here, or even small counties and us, have ways to recognize and a place that veterans could go and a park for people to enjoy that is affiliated or associated with veterans.
Mr. Johnny, who, other than yourself, I know you're the chairman of the council, and Ms. Smith obviously works over there with the VA office, but who else is, what I foresee is that we ought to go ahead with this design with somebody that's more creative than me, but that I guess would take that footprint of that property and try to design how you want to incorporate these things you've got on this list, unless y'all have some sort of plan how you want to go in there and do that. But I would imagine it's going to take an architect or somebody to draw up how you're going to lay these items out inside the park, and like Councilman Flowers said, building a shed or a picnic shelter or something there on the property. But that's what I would perceive that we do next, is that we go ahead and get somebody to start working on the design, unless anybody.
Mr. Chair, we've got a few pictures.
Oh, you already got
Councilman
them.
Williams has we just got a few examples of things to look at, kind of ideas here. If y'all got a second, we can go through them.
Sure, let's look at it.
You think our building man over there might take on one more responsibility?
I think you might
I
already be
mean,
on
since
top
you don't
of it.
have nothing to do?
I think you might already be on top of it, to be honest with
Okay.
you. So.
And two, that being that we don't have any expertise in the design, so we just.
You come in with your hand in your hand.
We just at your mercy.
This is
Ooh-wee.
park in, actually over in Bluffton, that's been recently developed, and I'm sorry, I don't know why the clear image is coming in and out like it is, but, we thought it was pretty interesting from the fact that you got a walking path, circular walkway with the parade grounds in the middle, and what they have here is actually in one corner, I think, a shelter with the playground, and then they've got a veterans monument here. And is that another one down there? Councilman Williams, he actually visited the
Yes.
site.
Yes.
And, this site, you can certainly square it off or make it more of a square than a rectangle. I think they were kind of fitting it in with what else they had there. So we'll see how much acreage was there. Y'all see acreage up there? Cut off.
There's something, can you slide this strip slide over a little bit? You see something with,
Yeah, you be shit.
247,
1.66 acres.
at the bottom. Yeah.
So that's smaller than
That includes that parking lot?
everywhere inside the red lines you see there. There's dotted red
Okay,
lines.
that's that one little block.
And it's got parking on that one side there, yeah, as well. And then, picture.
But that also has like a playground for young or kids and so forth attached to it with picnic tables, where people could actually.
That's one corner of it there.
Yeah, that's it.
Can y'all see that? And,
Got big bushes in it.
yeah. These other pictures are of the Jasper County Memorial, correct?
Yes.
That's Jasper.
City of Richmond.
And the benches, the reason why we took several pictures of the benches, because all of them had like different language on there. Just to give an example, that's Bluffton there. That's their monument.
and see if you got a picture of the playground. I didn't.
I may have stayed away from the playground because there were some children on it, and I didn't want anybody to think that I was.
I didn't see it.
I stayed away from that.
Yeah, these days and times, that's pretty smart.
Well, I mean, if we're gonna have, I would assume if we're gonna try to get some decommissioned military vehicles, we probably not, probably the playground is something that would have to be excluded to make room for those, but, and I would think being a military, we'd probably rather have the vehicles if we could have them. You know, whether we get a tank or who knows what we get, I guess, but, Mr. Johnny? you got a
Yes.
question?
Now, somebody made mention earlier about one running or something of that nature. We wouldn't want anything that's really operational because of vandalism.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
Yeah,
And most of those people.
Somebody getting hurt.
Decommissioned.
yeah, and then, and two, about the building, by no means would we want to exclude the Veteran Victory House. Because I have a strong feeling that they would be really overwhelmed by just taking their resident out there to a place like that.
Okay.
Well, I think, Mr. Chairman, go ahead with the design, like you say, and then, bring that back for, to look at when, after they get the preliminary and see if we got other, requests that we might make at that time.
Okay, we can do that, and this is good input as well, that they brought us, that we could share with the designer. We'll get that selected and get moved back and get moving with you all, Mr. Johnny.
Now, if I may, our thoughts is, again, yes, we don't have a whole lot of money, but then if we could get some assurance that we do have the park, then perhaps we can start some things on our end, trying to raise some funds, and I know it's gonna take a process to actually start raising.
Well, we have the property. Now,
Okay.
that's been secured, we got that taken care of, the council's funded, the design of the park. So you have the property and we'll have a design of it. And then at that point, I think they're gonna have another discussion that's a little more global of all our county projects here, once we get done with this, about moving forward with capital project sales tax and our other, items there. And I imagine that's probably going to be a big part of that conversation.
Okay.
Okay, is any other discussion? Johnny?
Mr. Chairman, just for information, and for Mr. Holmes also, now we can make this as elaborate as council would like, but just to get an idea, and as you're riding around, if you go to Cottageville, on the last CPST project, we built a walking park with a pavilion and restrooms. Now, it's not elaborate, it was scaled down, and this would need to be a little more elaborate to the armed forces, but if you're in Cottageville, right next to their town hall, there's a pavilion, male and female restroom, and it's got a walking park. That encompasses a good bit more acreage than this, with benches. They were just generic benches and all though, but it's something on the same scheme if you just want to, while you're out looking, and then as we get together to design or whatever, just kind of feed off of that. But it's in Cottageville.
All right. Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Holmes, for being here. I guess unless anybody has any other comments, we'll just go ahead and get the administrator to start working on the design. And I assume somebody will have to maybe look at the place in Columbia to see what kind of decommissioned military vehicles are available and out there, but the process by which to secure those. But other than that, I think that kind of concludes the discussion about the park. We can move on then to the Calhoun County capital projects. And I know everybody got a packet of information here. It's got a.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan.
Okay, thank you, I do appreciate that.
So,
Give me just a second. Or you can go ahead, I'm trying to pull it back up here. What you got in your packet there, I'm pulling mine up real quick. You didn't have an extra paper one, did you, Kevin? That's okay, I can pull it up on here. No problem. The first page is a list of what's been submitted to us from the different department heads as we sent out a request. The actual CPST Commission sent out a call for projects here about a month ago, and those projects that we then sent that out to our department heads, which what you have there in the listing on your sheet is first of all, a listing of all ours, and then you kind of give you an idea of what the other municipalities are looking for as well. And then what we would like to get from you all, and not necessarily go through every one of them today, but get you the information and get you to take a look and go through that info and give us an idea of what y'all feel like our priorities are, kind of prioritize that list. If there's something you feel like's missing with it, because each one on our list is a project description and a justification from that particular department as to why they believe that it would be a good project for CPST. To give you an idea, roughly, we won't have an exact number until probably April of what we think we'll be able to fund countywide under another capital penny, but probably looking in the ballpark of somewhere between 33 and 37 million with the way revenues are coming in now. I think last time we did right at 30 million, it was 29.5, somewhere in that ballpark. And obviously, the biggest item we're going to have to deal with will be the new jail complex. And the numbers that I have there are very general numbers. That's kind of a swag between Johnny and I. We've got all of these are moved over to our consulting engineer on the CPST, and we should have numbers. Johnny, when should they have that back to us?
They go to the commission in December, I believe.
But they've got to come back to council for council to rank them before we go to the commission. The council's got to rank them before, so we need to have that. Okay. Should be about middle of November. I would imagine we'd rank them there at 1st of December, and then it goes to the commission in January as we get moving there. Obviously, the sheriff's office, the magistrate's office is going to need to be ideally adjacent to the jail complex. The coroner's offices, he has expressed that he did not want to be part of the jail complex, just out of respect for the folks that do have to visit their office. Did not want them having to come to the jail to do, if you've got a morgue or any other things there. We've got an EOC center through Fire Rescue, a fire training facility proposed by Fire Rescue as well. There's a recreation project. They're full to the brim now. Chris is requesting an additional gym and activity rooms and some other stuff, which he has in his write-up there before you. Along with that, should probably roll this back, and the other would be the next phase of the Freedom Field or Miracle Field there at the park. We've got the initial funding through Senator Bright Matthews to get that started here in the near future. The museum submitted a project with renovation of the additional part, possibly of Hampton Street School. Animal control is definitely in need of a new animal control facility out there. That one's been pieced in part together for quite some time. Fleet management with the fuel terminal. Then we have the Veterans Park there on County Council. I would think we'd have a pretty good hard number by December on that one as well, as we should. And then also, the last part of this conversation today is we had talked some about voter registration, and they had made a presentation to you all, and I think maybe she had reached out to a few council members since then, Ms. Blake, with voter registration. And if y'all want to talk about some ideas or locations for it, or do you want us to include that you feel like it should be included as part of the capital project sales tax referendum as well. And you can do that through how you rank the projects as we bring them back to you. Not asking for that input today, give you some time to go look through the information, to give us a call, myself, Johnny, or whoever, if you want some additional information about what's being proposed, or if there's something else there that you would like to add, talk about, wide open to that as well. So with that, Mr. Chairman, if you've got anything additional you all want to ask or talk about now at this time, or we can,
The only thing that I'm just looking at here, I know you've got these other municipal projects that don't have any dollar figures, but I suppose that some of those are gonna wanna make requests, and, you know, just from the perspective of having the referendum successfully passing, we're probably gonna have to make some inclusions there. The other thing that's not there is, that we had discussed about an airport project, that's not on the list. So those items, I don't know which one of these items, like Walterboro, Edisto, or Cottonville, they have priorities on any of these projects, but.
is the airport going to submit a project? Or is that something that?
I would assume,
So
I don't know that they were solicited, but,
they got the information.
they do have the information?
They received information with every other entity, so.
And just to back up and review the process, if y'all may or may not remember from last time, but in fact, Johnny and I both had to do a refresher ourselves, is the council will rank all of our county projects. Now, some of this we'll call them county projects, but they're multi-jurisdictional. Everybody uses the jail, everybody uses animal control facility, you know, as we go on there. But you all will rank whatever projects, 1 to 10, that we have, however many we have on that list, and then your ranking will be submitted to the commission. Then the commission is going to go through all of the projects, Walterboro, Town of Edisto, Cottageville, County, and they're going to rank all of those projects from the top down to whatever the last number is that fills up the bond amount, which is 33 to 35 million. Then that'll be submitted back to council for final approval and put onto the ballot.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Okay. I see the projects that are listed here, and I agree that many of these needs to be done, but I would also like for us to consider, and I know this is a costly project, but I would like for us to consider something for the citizens so we can get their support, or a YMCA, or because yes, we have a recreation park over in I would call it the north portion, and but we still haven't addressed the needs in the southern side where the old stadium is, and I think we probably need to see about getting some additional funding through the state or the federal government or through whomever to go along with ours, because it is a costly project. But I would like to see us, or at least have a discussion on considering something like that. Or even we talk about veterans and we talk about the park, which I wholeheartedly agree with. But one of the things that, or even myself, as going to the VA, that for certain treatment, aquatic, there's no place in Walterboro. I know of several veterans that they had to refer to Beaufort, or they could elect to go to Charleston because they need water therapy. And there's some other benefits even for our young people. When you look at the south side of the county, the way it's laid out, many parents would allow their children to go to the recreation park that we even have over on the north end if they didn't have to cross through going over 17A or 15 in order to get there. But here, I think the streets are friendly enough where they could get on a bicycle and even ride to the old stadium, if that would be a place that is selected to put a YMCA. I think the more that we have to do for the young people in the community, I think it helps them to be contained. Adults are watching them, and I think it'd be less crime in the community if we could find more to keep their minds functional in the right direction and occupied. So, you know, I wish we would give some consideration there. I know it's a costly project, but you know, we have to think in terms of doing something before we get to the jail stages and whatnot of a young person's life.
Well, Mr. Sheriff, if you want to help us flesh it out a little bit, we can submit that along the rest of the projects that you all are going to rank to send out.
Well, just so I'm clear on that, now, are you talking about just a YMCA similar type facility or something that's actually affiliated with the YMCA?
Well, or I think if it's affiliated with, or it's my understanding that they would probably possibly even put some funds in it. But if it's not affiliated, I think it'd be up to us to come up with all of the funding. Now, I can actually do some research on my own so it wouldn't tie them up and then do a report.
We've got a
back that was
consultant under
necessary.
contract to do that, that's not a problem.
Okay.
Well, when we looked at affiliation with the YMCA several years ago, and I think one of the reasons we ended up backing away from it was because although they couldn't completely commit to putting any money into the project, they did agree to come in and run the facility, but then they were in charge of the fee structure and all that stuff. And what we got concerned about was whether the residents were actually going to be able to afford to go into the use of the facility, because, you know, their fees were, although they did have some sort of fee structure if you had someone who based on a certain income level, but it wasn't 100% clear. We ended up backing away from that. Now, as far as the need for a facility, I certainly agree with that. I mean, maybe we need to explore whether affiliation, if we want to affiliate with YMCA, or just kind of have the county build a similar type facility and then run it.
That we did look into that. It was to be so costly, and the thing of it is that they wanted us to commit to putting millions of dollars more every year or so into that facility and into running the facility, and let them have the so-called profits off of it. So it was something that we backed off on because we just feel we couldn't afford what they wanted, and I think that's one of the reasons they've had problems establishing in the areas that other than metropolitan areas, they've had problems establishing YMCA's because of the cost associated with it. It's just not affordable cost at that time. That's exactly right. So anyway, I agree we need a facility, but I don't know whether the YMCA is the one we really need to affiliate. One other thing I'd like to say, I'm seeing that like in the magistrate's office and the coroner's office and all this stuff, we look at it as separate type of facilities. I think if we try to look at building facilities such as this, we ought to combine them. The combination of the facility would be much less costly than separating these facilities. And there's no reason why we couldn't combine some of these facilities rather than building separate facilities.
Yeah,
you know, wants and needs are two different things.
I think the plan is to have the magistrates and the jails connected there.
And coroner's, I don't see any reason you've got to have a separate coroner's office. I know that's what he's talking about there, but on the other hand, they are related to the magistrates a lot of times and the law enforcement. You know, so anyway, that's just my thought. I just threw that out. I'm looking to try to get a good facility, but also try to do it economically, and that's just a thought that I have. So,
I thought we had some discussion of putting the coroner's office in the sheriff's administrative office, or attaching it somehow there rather than in the jail.
And, well, it could be on the same site, not right on top of the jail. I mean, there's plenty of room there to design it that
I'm
way.
just saying,
Yeah.
I have to build a
Actually, if you face it, there's Oh, I remember what you're talking about. That's, if you face the law enforcement center complex now, there's a lot to the left that's undeveloped there, and that would be a good site for the coroner's office. And then everything to the right would be jail and magistrates. So they wouldn't necessarily be coming, you'd be coming into the law enforcement center itself, which you could dive right into the coroner's office, and I think it would
Yeah, because
fit both of our needs, both all be on the same site, but not on top of each
the
other.
number you have there also includes, though, building a freezer or whatever, more, for the corner.
Like I said, those right now, those aren't the real numbers, that's based on kind of the last building that we bid over here, and just kind of throwing something at it to see, but we'll have real numbers for you here in a month and a half or two.
Yours are high.
And then where fire and rescue, I don't know. Now, and one of the things I saw where the additional gym and activity room would be approximately $4 million. Well, if we decide to put some of the facilities over on the south side or the eastern side, then that wouldn't be a need to continue to expand over there, and then you have have a facility on both ends to address both needs.
Okay.
Right now, specifically, I know there was specifically, we were going to have discussion about voter registration. Is that something that we want to go ahead and delve into, or?
We can, if y'all, I mean,
I think that would be good, Mr. Chair, because, initially, I thought that was what the initial promise was to them, that we were going to address it, and then at least we can have a discussion on however way council decide to deal with it, but then I think the focus still needs to be on addressing their immediate need.
we did not, if you want to move forward with it as we did not originally have it as a capital project sales tax project. That kind of came in after all that had gone out. If you want to do it and put that on the ballot or make that a candidate to go, we'll do all the background work through that process of locating the best site, what's the most economical, those type things, and then can bring that back to you when we have all the other estimates and things ready. I mean, if you're looking to try to do something faster than that, I mean, they're fine for this next election cycle, I think. It didn't matter, if you hit go tomorrow, you wouldn't have it ready by next November, is where you are. So I'm assuming you're thinking the next presidential election as to when we would have that office, moved over and ready to go. We kind of set up the leases we have now to kind of expire at that time and move somewhere else.
Well, I mean, I think that obviously they need space, whether we do it inside the capital project sales tax projects or we do it outside, obviously need space. My thing is looking at the capital project sales tax and the ultimate referendum, that we need to make sure we got projects on there that gives us the greatest chance of success of getting the projects approved. And those are generally the ones that are going to give us the broader support. I don't know if...
Well, let me ask you this. Do you want us to go ahead and just get started with that as a separate project? And let's fund it in a different way and get it going quicker?
That was the expectation. I think that was the expectation.
And I'll give it
we
on.
can do that. We can do that separately.
We can.
I mean, not saying that everybody, I think most people in the county would probably say that we do, lease a facility now, we don't have any expectation of how much longer we could even lease the facility. I mean, they have to fire, we're out anyway. But I'm also not sure that that's something that excites voters on a referendum either. These other projects, have more community involvement and impact. That's just my personal opinion, but I mean, I'm only 1 of 5.
I agree with that.
I agree. Yes. Yes.
So we'll just go ahead and get started with Avenue, and then we'll, let us work on some alternatives and get some preliminary input from our designers, and then we'll go from there. All right.
Anything
Now,
else?
did we ever discuss I think, are we led to believe that it's gonna be on our property somewhere over in a compound established?
Oh, yeah, that's the issue, we were gonna discuss possible
Right.
location, but I don't know that we're in a position to do that today.
I mean, I can bring it back to you a little bit later. I'll pull some stuff up and I can give you an idea of what we've got available sites to even possibly do it, but
These are county sites already.
yes, sir, this is law enforcement complex here.
Yeah.
That's the area I was talking about.
It's not
We got to
coming up.
share it.
Kevin, it's not coming up.
Oh, hold on a second. It disconnected on me.
And then I guess the question to me too, while you're looking up that, can all these pretty much fit on property that we already have, or we'd have to purchase new property in order to create a complex? I know the animal shelter would probably stay
I think,
over in that
I mean,
area.
pretty much everything's on our property, isn't it?
Okay.
Yes.
That, where the probation roll office is at, do we own the property that pretty much goes all the way from down there?
Yes.
To the,
This is that site right there,
yeah,
that site.
oh, is that it right there?
Yeah. And that's the one Johnny's talked about specifically, maybe the possibility of, we could take this facility and reuse it and put a warehouse somewhere here and maybe find a different office for probation and parole. And from a windshield tour of the site every morning when I go by it on the way to work, there are about 2 to 3 vehicles there when there used to be 10 or 12. Now, I don't know if that's COVID or they've changed the way they do business regionally rather than a county office, something we need to explore. But we could possibly, we were kind of under the gun when we did that because this old building had to be gotten out of because of the conditions of it. But we could look at rehabbing that as one alternative for voter registration, and then adding, that we would need to add either to the north or the south of the property, the actual warehouse to store the machines in there. That could be definitely one. And then we also on the, it's anticipated that the jail would go right in this area here, but we also own all the way over up to the apartment complex there, that there could be another site in this area. We also could ultimately, got 40-something acres back here that comes into that pond. Could ultimately develop a road in here and more of a complex type area where you could have, different lots to develop as well. Or if we decided to put a secondary recreation site that didn't go with the old stadium property, you might could look over here as well.
But I think something like that, we'd have to clarify, but I think something like that could be used at that site. They could use it for this. Yes, sir, we have to get away. And they wouldn't want that to be around the jail, though.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just kind of thinking the
You don't get out here and play, this is where you're gonna be.
Here's the future,
So I was actually thinking that parcel looks like 142, maybe it's 242. But,
right there.
yeah, I was thinking that's where the jail was going, but that's not, so they're building it on that lot right beside the facility?
Well, they're in the process of designing it right now. I don't have the absolute answer for you, but it's on that side somewhere.
Their intention, Mr. Chairman, is to be able to walk from one to the other to transport prisoners, so when they're doing interrogations and stop all the car movement like they are now, just to go to the courthouse or something back and forth,
Yeah, and you don't,
Yeah, well, that is walkable.
but also you don't think of it as facing the road. It could be turned and almost face the law enforcement center, be an internal type complex rather than 17,000 square foot building there now, Johnny?
yes.
Is what that rooftop is. Think about flipping that, you almost have room for twice that, especially if you turned it diagonally.
What is that little building behind the jail complex?
Right here? be the magistrate's office.
Okay.
The jail magistrate, and then you're talking about building all the magistrate's courtrooms.
Except for,
All of the-
Brother Richard Wood would like that, wouldn't he? If he was still on the, in a separate office. He wants a separate office.
So our magistrate's courtroom is, you go in there on certain days, that something's full, and they have to stand outside, there's no room. When it's raining, that's a little inconvenient. Mr. Chair, I move adjournment. You got a motion to adjourn, second, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Stand adjourned.
He works so much. It's Friday.